Guys, do you like playing visually pleasing builds? Do you guys like playing builds that really take advantage of that expensive computer that you bought, making it push itself to the absolute limit? What about builds that have the ability to absolutely explode bosses from 100 to 0 in mere seconds? Well, do I have a build for you today, and that is going to be my Bitter Dead Gemling. On top of the abundant amount of eye candy that you get playing this build, you also get an extreme powerhouse character that is going to be able to take on every piece of content in the game with ease. What makes this build so cool is starting with its main skill, Bitter Dead. This is a new Kalguran skill that was introduced in patch 0.5 that spends your runic ward to transform corpses into hundreds of floating icy cold blue balls to absolutely decimate your enemies. Normally, builds that focus around consuming corpses excel at AoE clear and mapping, but when put up against single target, it struggles because you can't actually generate corpses against bosses. But using the Spirit Gem Sacrifice, you are actually able to use your reviving minions as corpses for your skill Bitter Dead. But if we leave it at just that, our minions will actually die and you will not be able to use Bitter Dead again until they revive. And that's where the Gemling Legionnaire Ascendancy comes in. You see, patch 0.5 buffed Gemling Legionnaire to the moon, granting its Ascendancy node Advanced Thaumaturgy with the ability to add alternate gem quality effects. And as you might have guessed, the alternate gem quality effect for Bitter Dead is chance to not consume corpses. And using the effects of this Ascendancy node and also a bunch of gear, we can actually stack our chance to not consume corpses up to 100. But we actually don't want to go all the way up to 100, and I'll explain a little bit later in this video. But this build is overall an extremely cool build that uses this new skill on top of the buffed Gemling Legionnaire Ascendancy, and also some other really cool new things that were added to the game in patch 0.5. So with that, let's hop into the build itself. So taking a look at our current character, Bitter Dead and Alive, this character is a level 94 Gemling Legionnaire, and you can see its survivability stats are a little bit wonky, right? We have 1.5k life, but no energy shield, and that's because we actually use our mana as our survivability using Mind over Matter. So we stack as much mana as we can and use this as our life pool because Mind over Matter allows us to take damage from our mana before our life. So we use a lot of mana for this build, and we also use a lot of spirit for this build because we actually use cast on critical and mana remnants and cast dodge on roll on top of using a bunch of minions which all use our spirit. So that's why we have our stats here, as you can see right now. Now, before I go into the build itself, I do want to talk about the price of this build, because that will be an important part for a lot of people who are looking to play this character. And unfortunately, this character isn't quite a league starter, and you will need a little bit of currency to start off, because it uses this jewel right here called Split Personality, which allows us to allocate passive skills starting from the Sorceress part of the tree. So you can see, even though we are a Gemling, we can actually start allocating our points starting from up here in the Sorceress side of the tree. Now, this gem, this jewel, was about 34 divs when I bought it. Last I checked, it went up to like 59 divs or so. So I don't really know how much it's going to be when you personally look at this build and check how much the price of it is. Hopefully it goes back down, but we'll see if that ends up happening. But just a little bit of an idea for you guys. There is a little bit of a cost to start playing this character, which is going to be this ruby. It also has a cost for this belt, which at the time was like about 11 divs for a 90 plus socketed effect of augmented gems or items for Darkness Enthroned for the body armor. So those two things are really core for this build. And without them, I'd say you probably shouldn't be playing this build because you're going to not be able to get up to that 99% to not consume corpses, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the skill interactions that we have with this character. And the most important thing first, which is the 99% chance to not consume corpses. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you can get your character up to about 100% chance to not consume corpses, and over that. We actually choose to keep ours at 99 for a very important reason, and that's because we use Amannamu's Tithe. This allows us to get some abyssal modifiers whenever we do consume corpses, which, as you can see, does happen every now and then. whenever you see that little reviving icon pop up here, that means we consumed a corpse, and that's that 1% proccing. And that gives us a chance to get those Amunamu, or sorry, our abyssal modifiers. So that's why we want to be at 1% off from max. Well, how do we achieve this number? Well, there's actually 3 places that you get percent chance not consume corpses, which are, of course, the gems, the equipment, and the passive tree. Before we hop into the Bitter Dead Gem, which we did touch a little bit earlier on, let's actually hop into the gear, the tree first. So we have right here, this little ring right here will give us 25% total chance to not consume corpses. All right, so that's our first 25. We get another 25% from corpse conservation, the support gem. So that's a total of 50% chance not consume corpses. And we can take a look at here onto our Bitter Dead, of course, as I mentioned earlier. The Gemling allows us to get more chances right here, which we have a total of 19 right now from our 18% quality from global modifiers. So that goes from, of course, 25, 25, which is 50, plus 19, which is 69%. Now, where do we get our last 30% to go from 69% to 99%? And you have kind of 2 ways to get this, sort of. So first, of course, the required thing here is Azen's Charge. This is a wand that gives us innately chance to not destroy corpses when consuming them. Now, you can see mine gives 30%. But that's because we have a corrupted line here that crangled to go up to 30%. Originally, it only has 25%, which puts us 5% off from having that 99% number, which is why we get that last 5% from corrupting it. But I would say that this is the low budget option and probably not the best way to do it. It's only if you don't really have that much money, which I didn't have starting this build off, that you do this option. The better option is to just use a base one of these and maybe get it to like 3 sockets, get an exceptional one and get 3 sockets, and then get our last 5% from replacing this right here, Verona Siege, with Diala's Desire. And for anybody who doesn't know what Diala's Desire does, is that it gives us 5% quality on top of giving us 1 level to supported gems. So that's where that last 5% can come from, right? You can either get it on here or you can get it on your wand. Whichever one you do, it just depends on what your budget looks like. Eventually, I will be updating this build to go into Diala's Desire. So that is where you get your total 99% chance to not consume corpses. Now, for the rest of the skills, I'm actually just going to leave a little info, like a little image here to show you all the skills and the supports that we're using. But I did want to also explain why we're doing some of the support gems, which seem a little bit wonky, and also some skills that we're using that are a little bit weird as well. So you might see like this right here, Volatile Dead, having like all these gems that don't really do anything, and same with Unearth, which we, as you can see from our skill bar, don't even actually use. And that's because we use this right here, which is going to be gem studded. When we have socketed skill gems, with the most numerous number being red, it allows our hits against us to have no critical damage bonus. When it's blue as the most numerous, we get 30% less cost, and then green gives us 40% less movement speed penalty from using skills while moving. Now this build spams this skill a lot, right? So as a result, you kind of have to move a little bit slowly, and that's why that node is so important. As you can see, we have 17 green ones and 17 blue ones, which makes it so that we actually get both the the green and the blue effects. So because they're equal, we actually get both. The red one would be nice, but it's really hard in our build to actually fit in all the red gems in there, so that's why we kind of skip it and ignore it. But that's why we have all these weird gems going on here, because we don't actually use Unearth, we just kind of use it for these green gems, so we can actually get the 17-17. Now, in the future, we will be changing up our skills a little bit to run Archmage, as I mentioned earlier, so we'll have to figure out what we end up doing about that later on, but at least for now, that's why we have this whole setup. Now, on top of this, right, we also use a cast on crit setup with cast on dodge. Now, cast on crit, very simple, very straightforward, right? We use it linked with Bitter Dead to get more Bitter Dead charges. Now, we also have a cast on dodge setup right here, which we also have Bitter Dead in here, But to be honest, it doesn't actually proc all that often, and for us, it's not actually that important that it's something that procs all the time. The only real reason why we're using cast on dodge right now is because the quality effect allows us to get a ton of dodge roll distance, which will help us a lot with our mobility because, like I said earlier, you do spam this a lot as you're going through the map. But if you do spam, dodge, right, that will just make us move a lot faster and will help us with the mobility on our skills. For now, again, we're using Bitter Dead. I wish I could figure out a better use for like the skill, right, instead of Bitter Dead. But at the moment, I don't really have too much else that I want to put in here that would work out. If you guys have anything that you think would work out in here, let me know down in the comments, but that's what we have right now. And the reason why we don't use like regular spells is because, again, it does cost mana when we use our spells, but because we use a runic skill, that doesn't cost our mana, which doesn't reduce our survivability, right? So that's kind of what the situation is going on there. Now, speaking of runic skills and not costing mana, you might be wondering, how are we upkeeping our ward? Because every time we spam it, it takes quite a bit of ward. I think it's like 104. But as you can see, our ward pretty much never goes down. And that's because we are a mana stacking character and we stack a ton of regen, right? We have regen here. We have a ton of regen over here. We have arcane surge over here, right? A ton of mana and a ton of regen. And then we use this rune right here, the warding rune of Equinox, which allows us to have our mana recovery from regeneration is also applied to Runic Ward, but at the cost of 40% less mana regeneration rate. So that's how we get such a high amount of Runic Ward regeneration, which is why we pretty much never run out. Like, look at this. I'll press Refutation, which takes away all of our Runic Ward, and it just instantly goes back up, right? So as a result, Runic Ward is pretty much like just free. It's like infinite mana. So that's really nice, right? And that's why our setup is like this, and that's why we use Bitter Dead in here instead of another regular skill, because that way we never have to spend mana. So we use the cast on crit, cast on dodge, Bitter Dead. All of that is what our damage is done by. Now, we also use Skeletal Clerics because this is the most spirit efficient cleric, and you're going to want to have 10, right? Because Bitter Dead at level 20 gets 9, and then with the additional quality will give you 10 corpses. So that's why we want 10. And I think if we do use the Dial's Desire, it might go up to 11. So we might have to try to find a way to squeeze in a little bit more spirit to get 11 of our Skeletal Clerics to get maximum amount of damage output. Now, something else that we use is Soul Offering. So Soul Offering is something that we use to use against bosses. And for that, we have it on a second weapon set, as you can see on our tree. And it does impale and kill 2 of our corpses. But the cool thing is, those corpses can actually be used for Bitter Dead. So even though we kill 2 of our corpses and turn it into the Soul Offering, they actually still operate as before with Sacrifice. That's why we can have our 10 right here and still not lose damage because of that. Pretty cool interaction there. But yeah, that about wraps it up for our skill. I guess, maybe the last thing is like, of course, Reputation gives us some more defense when we need it against bosses. And Mana Remnants is really huge too, which it gives us a ton of our survivability, right? It keeps up our mana. When we get hit, Mana Remnants always heals us. So we go into the Mana Remnants and Remnant stuff quite a bit in this build. But that is going to be it for the skills, I believe. Again, I'm going to leave everything. I had all the skill gems up here, floating around somewhere this whole time, hopefully. So if you guys want to go and copy that skills and supports, that is right there. Now, going into our equipment, I talked about everything that we need for our chance not consume corpses, but there are some other equipment that are pretty important to this build as well. First one is going to be Malagoro's Virtuosity. This is going to allow us to always have our crit damage bonus at 250%, which makes it so that we don't actually have to build crit damage on a tree, because we actually need a lot of our nodes for other things, like, remnants, we need the meta skill stuff, we need, all this stuff kind of spread across. So that's why we use Malagoro's Virtuosity. I would like to eventually find a way to not use Malagoro's, but at least for now, I haven't really thought about or found any way to like get us off of this and then be able to use Garcons. That's like the main thing, the main reason why I wouldn't want to like swap it off. But at the moment, I haven't really been able to find a way to get us off of this. But this is a core part of our build for that reason. We're also using a Moria Invictus. Ours is really good. I bought this for like 200 divs. You probably, I don't know, most people might not be able to buy this, but you don't need to have a Mariah. Originally, I was just using like a energy shield and spirit chest armor. Like this is only to like kind of be there to min max. In reality, getting spirit and energy shield on chest isn't going to be that big of a difference between having this. It's just kind of a min max thing, just for our survivability. Get more mana, get more spirit, get more everything, right? Now in it, we also have socketed some runic ward jewel socketables augments because we do need some runic ward to start off to be able to cast our skill, right? Even though we recover it pretty much instantly, we need to have enough to be able to actually cast it. So that's why we put some runic ward augments in here, and that's why we also make this rune mastered as well, because we don't actually even benefit from evasion anyways. So the runic ward there is just like free for us. So that's why we do the socketables here instead of just putting all mana, right? So that's what the setup is there. Now for our helmet, you're just going to want a survivability helmet with as much energy shield as possible. In general, you're just going to want to get as much energy shield everywhere because all that energy shield gets converted into mana. So a lot of flat energy shield on everything is basically what you want, right? Helmet, a lot of energy shield, but on top of that, you want to put this right here. Increase reservation efficiency of minions because we are a build that does run minions. So having that helps us out with our spirit usage. Now for our necklace, we do not have anywhere near a perfect necklace. And eventually we're going to go and swap off of mind over matter to try to get fully, like almost fully converted to damage taken from mana before life. But we just need the gear for that. But at least for now, before we get that, we just have very basic, right? You want to have plus level skills +3, and then spirit as much as you can on this necklace. Solar amulet, of course, would be perfect, but you know, that's going to be very expensive, right? So this is what we have right now at a very minimum. You can also get percent increased mana on here, more mana, everything. Mana everywhere is good because we are a mana stacking build. We also have Paragon on here, right? Because this gives us more quality. Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to mention this earlier when talking about quality for our what is it called? Our 99%. You also need Paragon. That's another thing you need anoint. That is a secret anoint, the one of the new ones. That's right here, right? It costs a ferocity, isolation, and despair. So that's something that you're going to want to have on your build as well to reach that 99%. And that's going to be for the amulet. For our rings, it's basically, if you can get crit chance on here, that's what you want at a minimum. Of course, you also want cast speed. The faster you cast, the more balls you make, right? So cast speed on your rings is ideal. I don't have that yet. I'll probably upgrade that soon. And then also crit chance. Now there's also mana again. You could get percent mana right here, percent maximum mana, if you use this, what is it called? This essence right here, perfect essence of the mind, right? Rings, percent maximum mana. You can craft that in there. Very, very easy. I will try to craft this on both eventually whenever I do upgrade these rings. So that's kind of what the goal is, right? Crit chance, mana, and cast speed. And of course, survivability. This also has increased effective arcane surge, which is a nice prefix to have as well if you can fit into there. And there's also a new base type that also comes with an implicit to have increased percent mana. So that's another ring that you can kind of target there. Now, the other stuff is not that special, right? For your scepter, I prefer having a shrine scepter, of course. The purity of whatever is very nice for our survivability stats, for resistances, so you can focus on other things on your other pieces. You want to have as much spirit as possible on this as well. And mana regeneration, not as much important, but also the stat is kind of nice to have there as well to help us round out our stat everywhere else. For our boots, movement speed boots, right? And resistances, survivability stats. That's pretty much all you need on there. If you can get intelligence, even better, right? More intelligence, more mana. Another alternative that I thought about doing, because we are using cast on dodge, is going to be the new boots from the new Arbiter of Divinity, which is the ones with the wings. I forget what they're called. Let me find them. This one, Decree of Flight, because this does help us get a faster dodge roll, right? But it does reduce like our survivability and our mana. So you can use it if you just want to be like more mobile, right? And you have everything else there. But, you know, I personally just prefer having a regular old energy shield boot to give us a little bit more mana, more survivability, and more damage, right? And yeah, that should wrap up everything for our gear. We went over the belt earlier in our talk about the what is it called? The 99%. Oh yeah, also, the other thing that's really good right here is Rune of the Blossom. Where eventually, if we're going to do the mind over matter swap off thing, we're going to get off of this. But this is really cool for now because it gives us 98 spirit, as you can see. But the downside stays the same. It doesn't get doubled. So you actually get a ton of spirit from this and a very, very small downside. I think we get like an extra like 50 spirit from this setup. So yeah, you're going to want to go use that as well. Now, for the tree, as I mentioned earlier, we are using the split personality ruby. Now, this is a very interesting and kind of clunky jewel because it doesn't really work the way you would think it does. So the reason why we're able to start up here, right, is because we have this jewel socketed right there. But you can't just socket this into anywhere if you're not connected into it. So what you need to do is originally when you don't have the jewel socketed yet, you need to find a way to path up to this jewel socket basically. And then after you path up to the jewel socket, then you can go and put that jewel socket in, like put the split personality in there and then respec, right? So we have everything connected now. We can then put the split personality in here. And then after that, you go and respec off of everything to make it into the tree that you see right now. A little bit annoying, but that's kind of how you get this whole thing set up. So that's the split personality jewel. For the rest of the tree, right, we are currently running, of course, a good bit of remnant effect to be able to take advantage of mana remnants to help us with survivability, right? We have that over here as well. We also have 2 weapon sets. One weapon set for our main weapon set, just because we needed to, because our second weapon set is going to be maximizing on that offering that I mentioned before, right? More duration and more effect, which is going to be right there. We also get quite a bit of mana regeneration. We get the Arcane Surge. And eventually we're going to be swapping off of Mind Over Matter, as I mentioned. So this is just our tree for now. In the future, it is going to be looking quite a little bit different, and we're going to take stuff off of this side. But yeah, that's the tree itself. And for the jewels, of course, we have split personality. But then we're also going to be using this one right here, the Heart of the Well Diamond. I just took a random one off my other character. Of course, again, critical damage is not necessary, but I'd say double damage as maximum mana on kill is really good. And then later on, we're going to get damage taken from mana before life. So that is another thing we're going to do to be able to get more of that percentage there, right? So that's the jewels that we use, and we just use a rare jewel over there. I don't have one slotted in there right now, but actually, let's just go into this one. For now, I just have a very much a stopgap jewel, meta energy, crit chance, elemental damage, cold damage, just to be able to get us a little bit more. Eventually, this is going to be going away because we are going to be not using this side of the tree, but that's just kind of there for now. But yeah, that's pretty much the tree, all the jewels, and the character. Nothing too much else to explain there. I'll have a lot of more information, like detailed information on the written guide as well. So if there's anything that I didn't answer on this question or on this video, it'll probably have an answer there on the written guide. And if I missed anything, right, let me know down in the comment section below. I also stream every single night, so come hang out with me there. But yeah, that wraps up this video. Again, comments down below if you have questions, or just let me know, hey, your build is amazing, really cool, right? And if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting the sub button. It's completely free, and lets me know you like these types of videos. I also stream again on twitch.tv/me/sure every single night, so come hang out with me there. But, you know, if I can't see you there, don't worry. Hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. All right, guys. Peace.